Today I want to start with making different roles for the users. So we need a new field for the user model, which is gonna be an enum with 3 values. Basically, an admin should be able to do anything, managers should be able to do anything but user management, and guests are kinda like in read-only mode. As always, create and apply the migration. Since our model is changed now, we need to fix a couple of errors. Let's just set the default role to admin, and we'll change that a bit later. Then let's see how to actually use roles to protect the routes. First, I need our JWT validation function to append the role to the requests along with the user ID. Next, I'll create a new decorator that will allow us to set roles for each endpoint. All that it does is set the roles to the metadata we can then access in a guard. And here I'll create the guard. I'll use the reflector class to get the roles we just set, and the execution context to get the user role attached to the request. If they match, it should continue with the request, otherwise we'll get the unauthorized error. And finally, let's try it on the create barber endpoint. I want only admins and managers to be able to do that. One thing I want to point out is that if you want to do multiple useGuard decorators, keep in mind that they're gonna be executed in reverse order. So in this case, we will do the roles guard before the auth guard, and that means we won't have the user data in time. So it's a bit more clean to just combine them in a single use guards. Let's test it with the admin user. Now it works, but if I remove admin from the roles, it's gonna return an error. Now we can apply the decorators to every endpoint protected by authentication. Remember that admins can do anything, managers can do anything but working with users, and guests can only watch. Now in the create user endpoint I want to be able to set the role. First, I'll update the DTOs. There is a convenient isEnum validation decorator. I just need to modify the error function, the default one is too vague. And then we can set the role and create and update endpoints. Note that the first user is always an admin. Let's also make an endpoint that returns all possible roles. We'll need it for the user forms in admin panel. And I almost forgot to add role to the user DTO that we returned from the API. Finally, I'll make another DTO for creating the first user since we don't need role here. Now, in the admin panel we can update DTOs and the model and display the roles for the users in the table. And here is the form we talked about. We need a drop down to select a role here. Fortunately, I planned for 100 steps ahead and I already have an endpoint to get the roles variants. So in the admin project we once again need a new API method and a new query. Then we should update create user DTO. Remember that now we have a separate one for the first user. And finally, we can update the form. One of the bad things now is that if we're logged in and do not have permissions for something, it's just gonna be loading forever with no way to know what's wrong. It's okay for now, I want to fix it when we get to the error handling. But still, what we did right now is actually a pretty big milestone, because now the project is ready to be published online, so you guys can check it out. There is like 10,000 different ways to publish websites, from using your own computer to cloud services. It all depends on our requirements, knowledge and money of course. For my projects, I chose something in between that I think is a good balance of being simple to use and pretty cheap. There is this tool called Dokku. In short, it's something you install on your server and then you can publish your projects with a couple of commands Heroku style. I'm not gonna show you my publish process for this project because I kinda already did it and I also don't want to accidentally leak anything. So if any of you are interested, let me know. I could make a separate video just about using Dokku. But I will still try to explain every step I did for this project. So first, you need to install Dokku. It's pretty easy to just follow the docs, and it's even easier if you're using something like DigitalOcean, where you can just select it as your image. You should also set your DNS records to point to the server. It may take some time to propagate, so make sure it did using a service like this. Then, you can log into Dokku server and start setting it up. For every project, you need to create a new app using this command. If a project needs a database, you can create one using Dokku plugins. In my case, I used Postgres. Don't forget to link your new database to the project. That will set a database URL environment variable for the project. Dokku will also set the port variable automatically. You need to respect it in your project and run it on that port. We'll talk about it later as well. And if you want your own environment variables, like secrets, API URLs, and so on, you can easily set them yourself. After you publish the project, you should check the domain and change it if needed. And finally, Dokku also has a Let's Encrypt plugin, so you can set up SSL with a couple of commands as well. And that's it for the Dokku side. Let's talk about how you need to update your projects. We will start with the server. As you definitely remember, it already uses database URL variable to connect to the database, so we're good here. As for the secret, I set it up myself using the command from before. So I only needed to respect the port variable on the server start. Finally, I made a proc file to specify the command for Dokku to run. We need to run migrations for every release and use the nest start:prod command to run the server. And that's it. Dokku will automatically detect that this is a Node.js project, will install dependencies and stuff, build it and run. In order to send the code to Dokku, you just need to set another git remote and push to it. Ideally, this should be a part of CI/CD. For example, I could set a GitHub action to publish the project every time I push to the master branch. But I don't think I need it for now, and it will just make things more complicated. But keep in mind that it can be very handy, especially if you work in a team with other people. If you did everything correctly, your project should be available on your domain. In my case, when I try to go fetch the barbers, it returns an empty array, and that is correct because it's not an error. Let's move on to the admin project. First, I'll update API module to use API URL environment variable. With create React app, you need to prefix variables with React_app, so they get embedded and built correctly. I will point this variable to the API on the server myself, just like I did with the server project secret variable. I also need to install Serve package to serve the app. It is required because create React app gives you tools to build the application into a bunch of files, but then you should figure out how to send it all to clients yourself. And serve is what they recommend in the docs. And I'll make a new command to start the project on Dokku. Finally, I'll create a proc file with a single command that starts the server on port specified by Dokku. And that's it. After I push the code, I can visit the admin panel online. Deploying the client's project is even easier. All I need to do here is to use the environment variable for the API URL. Next applications use port variable automatically, and I don't even need proc file here. Dokku is smart enough to run build and start scripts by itself, so I just need to push the code to the server and it will just work. So now we pretty much have a very unfinished but working website. I can visit it online and I can edit the content in the admin panel and it's gonna show on the client side. I'll also make a guest user with these credentials, so you guys can check it out as well. Links are, as always, in the description. There is a problem though. Right now, I'm just gonna give you a hint. It's about how we store images on the server. If you got what it is, leave a comment so everyone knows how smart you are. And I'll explain it in the next video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you there.